The ancient city of Matera, which until recently was relatively unknown, is one of the most enchanting places in the world, located in the Basilicata region in southeastern Italy. Matera is a unique example of a cultural tradition and civilization which stretches back to the Neolithic age. The old city was created out of a rocky ravine. The fact that this city maintains unspoiled its history and its appearance from 2,000 years ago simply means that the people who settled in this beautiful place succeeded in a harmonious integration without the necessity of violating the territory. Matera was developed by its inhabitants over the centuries in a manner that's now called spontaneous architecture, due to the way the city conforms to the natural environment while revealing many very sophisticated and elegant styles. This form of architecture strikes the attention of visitors arriving in the city, as it creates a surreal landscape reminiscent of the emotions stirred before certain modern abstract paintings. Caves are carved out one above the other and arranged in a seemingly chaotic way until it's realized that the caves are really a labyrinth of houses. The roof of one house may appear as a road, a stairway, a garden, or as the floor of yet another house. Walking through the old city, many chimneys sprout out of the road, and you find yourself walking on the roofs of other houses. Distinguishing the natural rock formations and the architecture created by the ancient inhabitants is often impossible. In Matera, one goes on an incredible journey in a world of art and spirituality from medieval times until the 19th century. There are monasteries, shrines, ancient parishes, and the institutions of bishops, about 150 sites of worship with many different styles and religious and historical influences. The Convicino of St. Anthony is located within the Casalnuovo district in Caveoso. The entire structure is composed of 4 stone churches in different architectural styles, arranged horizontally along the side of the river Gravina: San Primo, San Donato, Sant'Eligio, and Sant'Antonio Abate. Santa Lucia alle Malve is one of the most richly decorated churches in Matera. Founded in the 11th century, it was a convent of Benedictine nuns until 1283. It's painted with frescoes of clearly different styles, both Latin and Eastern. It's a rock church of considerable size, extending over a quite distinct nave and 2 aisles. The events that befell it after it was abandoned by the monastic community have left clear enough evidence to enable us to reconstruct its planimetric and architectural evolution, albeit with a little imagination. Of the nave and 2 aisles that articulate the internal space, the right aisle, where the present entrance is located, has always been open for worship, and even now, on the 13th of December, the feast day of St. Lucy, a solemn mass is still held here. The nave and left aisle, however, were turned into habitations and depots, and remained as such until the 1950s. The cave house of Vico Solitario is the only opportunity we have to understand how life was in these houses dug into the rock. These houses were evacuated in the 50s under order of the Prime Minister Alcide de Gasperi, who began a recovery plan of the area. A huge rocky cavity is the entrance to the house, where all the objects, working tools and furniture are reproduced. The visitor travels back in time, looking at the little table with a plate in the center. At that time, people ate from the same plate. The mattress made of corn shucks, the little stable where once there was a mule. This house cave today is a little museum. For the history of Matera and its province, wine has been a unifying element between different cultures which have inhabited this fertile land. All this is proved by the presence of 96 cellars, 53 of which are in the quarter of Casalnuovo of Sasso Cavioso, a rocky settlement dug by Serbo-Croat groups in the 15th century. The first rock churches date back to the late Middle Ages, when monasticism became popular in the Catholic community of that age. These places of worship are dug into the tough rock, and they're a distinctive tract of all Materan territory. Crypt, hermitage, basilicas, and monastery are scattered all around the urban fabric of the Sassi, throughout the precipices or on the Murgia Plateau. The historical park of the rock churches is to be found within the larger park of the Murgia Materana. There are various itineraries for visiting the churches carved into the rock, painted with frescoes of Christ, the Virgin, the saints, and the apostles. The Sasso Cavioso is dominated by the Monterone, which houses the Church of Santa Maria de Idris, communicating with the Church of San Giovanni Monterone. These two churches, joined by a tunnel, are exceptionally beautiful. The churches dug into the rock with their architectural virtuosity and their frescoes are exceptional works of art and examples of negative architecture, which the local residents were perfectly accustomed to, seeing that even the houses were built in the same way. In a heterogeneous and harmonic group, in which Orthodox churches are placed side by side with Catholic churches, these buildings testify to the development and the cultural level reached by these communities. Santa Lucia and Agata delle Malve, Santa Barbara and here Santa Maria de Idris are just some of the approximately 150 rock churches built in all Matera's territory. With its well-preserved 13th century Byzantine frescoes, the church is one of the most evocative of churches. The present appearance of the Church of Saints Pietro and Paolo, generally known as the Church of San Pietro Cavioso, dates from the late 13th to early 14th century, although the original building goes back to 1218. On entering the church, the silence and the atmosphere emanating from the nave, with its original ceiling, hidden during the 18th century, are palpable. Note the false ceiling with its painted wooden panels depicting Christ entrusting the future of the church to St. Peter, the Madonna del Confalone, and the conversion of St. Paul. Matera's development was due to its geological setting. A belt of soft tuff is located between 350 and 400 meters above the valley bed, and this also contains two natural depressions called Grabiglioni. In consequence, it was here that the settlement grew up. The clay plateau above was reserved for agriculture and pasturing. This structure remained intact until the 18th century. It was the expansion and interventions of the 19th and 20th centuries that rejected the ancient principle of land management based on water supply and drainage, and spread to the clays of the plateau above. The original urban fabric degenerated to the point where Matera, hailed by the 12th century geographer El Idrisi as magnificent and splendid, was seen by Carlo Levi in his famous novel Christ Stopped at Eboli as the symbol of the misery of peasant life in southern Italy. The stately Palazzo Lanfranchi was built by Francesco da Copertin, a monk belonging to the order of the Capuchins. Despite having been completed in 1747, the Chiesa del Purgatorio Nuovo has a late Baroque facade by Giuseppe Fatone from Andria. Its recurring and only theme is death, which was very fashionable at the time, and which was considered not as an end, but as the beginning of a better life. The line of the elevation is original, in that it curves, rather like a bishop's mitre, and is divided into two parts by a string course and articulated by 4 pilasters. The town and park constitute an outstanding example of an architectural ensemble and landscape, illustrating a number of significant stages in human history. On the top of the hill of the city is the cathedral, which offers an amazing view of the Sasso Barisano. This church dates back to the 13th century and rose on the remains of an older church, Sant'Eustachio. The exterior presents a rose window with 16 small columns, and the bell tower is in Apulian Romanesque style. The cathedral is dedicated to the Madonna della Bruna, which is Matera's patron saint and is celebrated on the 2nd of July. The Matera region has been inhabited by man since the Paleolithic period. Permanent defended village settlements grew up after the last ice age based on agriculture. Deforestation of the area led to serious erosion and created problems of water management. The gradual invasion of fields led to a change from agriculture to pastoral transhumance. The advent of better tools with the Metal Ages made it easier to dig into the soft calcareous tough rocks exposed in the gorges and canyons, and there's evidence from the Bronze Age of the creation of underground cisterns and tombs, and in particular of underground dwellings opening out of a central space called Jatsi. The excavated tough blocks were used for the construction of walls and towers. Since the Sassi were excavated during the period when the authenticity of many comparable historic centres was compromised, they preserved their form of the 1950s, which represents organic growth over more than 2 millennia. So far, most of the work that's been carried out has concerned weatherproofing and repair, with the replacement of fallen structures and roofing to prevent further degradation. The authenticity at the present time can be considered to be irreproachable. The ensemble of I Sassi di Matera and the archaeological and natural park bear unique witness to man's activities. The outstanding universal value stems from the symbiosis between its cultural and natural characteristics. The Sassi quarter of Matera is the best surviving and most complete example of continuity in the Mediterranean region of this type of settlement, which developed in close harmony with the ecosystem.